Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint an adorable spring rainy day elephant with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. You can also do this on any size canvas. There is an optional traceable for this, and we will be drawing this with a piece of chalk. If you're going to draw this with me, you can do that with chalk. Let's go over brushes and colors. So I'll be using this 1-inch flat. However, you can use the 3/4 flat. I believe the instructions for this say 3/4 flat, but either of those should work. A number 12 bright brush I'm using for the majority of the painting of the elephant, and the foreground is also helpful for elephant painting. And the 8 long round, I use this specifically for the point of it to get those really, really fine lines in the raindrops. You can also use a liner brush for that. A pencil for a few parts of the painting. And let's talk about colors. So these are Liquitex Basics colors. So use whatever brand you have available. This is Mars Black, Titanium White, Deep Violet, Brilliant Purple. You can actually take out one of the purples, maybe the darker or the lighter purple. Light Blue Permanent, Pyrrole Red, Primary Yellow, and Light Pink. You can also take out light pink and make light pink by mixing white with your red. So that's a way you can simplify this color palette. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So position your canvas vertically. And so this is 11 by 14 inch canvas. You can use whatever size you have available. And we're going to start by painting the background. So this is a really pretty rainy day abstract background. And I love doing these rainy day paintings because you can add some pops of color into your grays. So Titanium White, Mars Black, Brilliant Purple, and Light Blue Permanent. I'm going to use my 1-inch flat, but you can use a 3/4 flat for this. I'm going to start by mixing a few colors on my palette. And so when I mix these, I'm not going to mix them all the way. I'm just going to take a big chunk of white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple, a little bit of black, and start adding this to the canvas. So when you're painting this, you want to use full width paint strokes. And you want to go all the way from the top edge to the bottom edge of the canvas. And you want to keep this very light. If we go too dark with the background, the elephant's not going to have a lot of contrast. The elephant's kind of a dark medium gray color, so if our background is also dark medium gray, he's not going to really stand out. So we want to make sure we keep it light. So when you add your black, you only want to do a little bit at a time. If it gets too dark, you can remedy that by just adding a whole bunch more white. And just add those pops of color of green, or not green, purple and blue, and let it just kind of gently blend on the canvas. And you create that rainy day effect with those colors that just kind of bleed together. And you can add water to your brush. It's a very thin layer, so adding little bits of water to your brush help not only to get the colors to blend, but helps them to spread faster and get your canvas covered faster too. I like how these pops of purple look on here, so I'm just going to add those and kind of blend it in with the rest of the canvas. Again, you don't want it too dark. Also, you don't want it too bright, so you want to make sure your color is blending with your white and your little bits of black. It gives it that gray effect, but these streaks of color give it that abstract rainy day background effect. When you are done with your background, you want to go ahead and let your canvas dry and then come back to this step. I'm using a pencil, however, I am going to switch to chalk so you'll see it better. So about 1 inch on the bottom left of the canvas, I'm going to draw the ground. So this is where the elephant's going to be sitting. It's kind of a slight curve, like a little hill. So about an inch. It goes up to maybe an inch and a half in the middle because it bends upwards. And then we're going to do the elephant. So again, I am going to switch to chalk so you can see it better, but kind of locate where the center of the canvas is, and we're going to do the elephant's head first. So the elephant's head is like a triangular shape. However, the corners are curved. So I'm going to do, and this is just a regular piece of white chalk. It erases with a clean, wet paintbrush. Clear water will erase it. It's just a triangle with corners for the curves for the corners. And do his trunk. So it kind of bows outwards and then it bends down and then bends back up. I do change the style of this trunk way later on in the painting where it makes it look like the trunk is actually holding onto the umbrella. So you could simplify it like how I'm doing at first, or you can draw it to where it is wrapped around the umbrella. I do show both ways in the instructions of the painting, and the little picture that shows the drawing shows it where the trunk is wrapped around the umbrella. And then sketch the ears. So I'm going to start way up at the top of the head. It's going to kind of go diagonal outwards, bend down, and then I'm going to do the bottom line. Kind of goes outwards. So just the simple elephant ear shape. Make sure, I know we placed the placement of the head right in the middle of the canvas, but you want to make sure there's plenty of room above the elephant for that umbrella. And then make the ears pretty much symmetrical. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. And I'm going to do the legs. So these curve down. This one on the left goes behind the trunk. We see his front legs, two little curves on the bottom. It's going to go up and make an arc. It's a very simplistic cartoon style drawing. And then we're going to make him look like he's sitting down. So I'm going to do two ovals for his back legs and attach. Then I'm going to do another curve right here. I'm going to draw a little bit of his inner ear. So I'm going to take the same shape and just kind of just draw another line at the top. And that's going to be adjusted when we paint it in. We'll make more of an inner ear shape in there. I'm going to do a little curve on the top of his trunk. And then two eyes kind of going diagonally, and two little eyebrows. I'm going to erase that line where the trunk is overlapping and do a few more of those wrinkle lines with two more curves. And then I'm going to start drawing the umbrella. So let's start with the umbrella pole. And this is going to go across his head, and that line is going to kind of go over the left part of his head. I could make it go up further than it's actually going to go, and you can use a ruler to help with that line. And then a little curve down here for the handle of the umbrella. If you want to adjust the trunk to make it look like it's wrapped around the pole, you can, or just keep it simple how it is. And then a big arc, and you might have to sketch that arc multiple times, but look how it goes all the way across from one side of his ears to the next. And then using that pole as the midline, I'm going to do 3 arc lines. The middle one is going in the center, and then another set of 3, and then going from each of those points, 2 curves that go up to the top center of the umbrella, And then there's like a little oval on the very, very top of the umbrella for the center part. I'm gonna adjust his eyes a little bit. And we're gonna end up painting over his head anyway, but I want these eyes just a little bit smaller, a little bit lower. I'm gonna make the legs just a tad bit wider and rounder at the bottom, but all of this can be adjusted as we paint it in. We're going to start painting our elephant in, and we are only going to be using black and white right now. If you want to get creative and add blue into it and purple, you can. You just want to be really careful because we want to create contrast so it stands out against that background. I'm going to do black and white mixed together, and I'm going to make a medium gray color. And you can see I added a little bit on my canvas to kind of test that out. That was too light, so I added more black in there. It really needs to stand out, needs to show up. So once you get your kind of dark medium gray color, you're going to paint the entire head. And this is a number 12 bright brush. If you don't feel comfortable using the bright brush for this, and because there's a lot of rounded strokes in this, if you want to use the round brush for the entire thing, you're definitely welcome to do that. But this is all solid the same color, and I had to paint over the eyes, and that's okay because we'll add those again later. So we're going to be mixing lots of different shades of gray here, and I'm going to go to the ears next. And so the ears need to be a couple shades of gray darker. So take the same color you used for the head and add just a little bit more black in there. And we're making the ears darker so that they stand out next to the head. So I'm going to start by outlining the shape of the ear and then filling it in solid. You could take this and cut this part right here, that edge. And that edge is very important. The edge must be a lot darker than the head so that it stands out. Then I'm going to just fill in that ear shape. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, same shade of gray, make sure that it's darker than the head. And then we're going to do the body, legs. So this is also that dark gray that we just used for the ears. And right here, I'm actually making that, so to the left of his trunk right there, that part's just a tad bit more shadowy, darker. And so you're just outlining the shape and then use the full width of the brush to kind of fill it in, go pretty much in the direction of the shape that you're filling in. So that this curves, or my strokes are going to curve with that shape. Get as close to the trunk as possible. If you need to paint over parts of the trunk, that's okay. The trunk is going to be lighter. In fact, I'm going to make it so it's a tad bit lighter than the head so that the trunk where it starts, that's going to show up a little bit better when it overlaps the bottom of his head. So this is lighter gray, and it's much, much lighter than the legs, the body, front chest area that we just painted. That helps it to stand out. So you're just adjusting on your brush. I haven't rinsed my brush at all. You're adjusting your levels of white and black on your brush to get your gray elephant colors. And that comes with practice. If you notice that it's not getting dark or getting, sometimes it's hard to get lighter once you've painted something dark, you can wipe your brush off, have like a towel handy, wipe it off or rinse off, start over to get your colors. Or if it makes more sense to mix your light, medium, and dark grays on your palette, you can do it that way. If you need to switch to a round brush, if you haven't already, you can, because the trunk area gets kind of small and harder to paint with this flat brush. I'm going to paint it the way I drew it here, kind of the simplified way. But if you decide you want to make it look like the trunk is wrapped around the umbrella handle, I think it'd probably be best for you to paint the umbrella handle first. So just kind of leave the trunk like how it is right now. And then when the step comes to paint the umbrella handle, you can finish the trunk. I'm just filling in this area on the negative space around the trunk. So that should be dark. The trunk should be light to help that stand out. Added just a little bit more dark in this area. Sometimes I like to create some color variation, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding a little bit of white in this dark area, kind of blending it in so you have some pretty different shades of gray in there. So this part either needs to be darker or lighter. I'm going to start by just making it, maybe we can outline the edge of that dark and then fill it in kind of with that same medium gray color. And then you can outline the edge of his legs. And then his back legs. Same thing, it either needs to be darker or lighter. I'm gonna I made it just a little bit lighter so it shows up. And then the bottom of his feet are kind of closer to that lighter gray color we used in his head. I took a little bit of that lighter color I was just using for the bottom of his foot and kind of outlined the far right side of his leg. And then left side, same thing, lighter gray color for the bottom of his back foot. And then you'll want to paint his back leg as well. I am going to do something else to the ears, kind of do the lining of his ears. So I'm going to wipe my brush off so that I can get lighter gray on there. And you may want to wipe it off more or completely rinse because this should be kind of a light gray. So I'm going to take this and just kind of start outlining the middle part of his the edge of the ear to kind of frame the entire thing with this lighter gray color. So his inner ear is still dark. This is just a lighter gray that I'm outlining. I'm kind of giving it more shape. Outlining would be a lot thinner. This is kind of a thicker outline. And then the same thing over here with that kind of medium lighter gray color. It's almost the same shade of gray as the head. So we can still see the inner part of his ear is dark, and we have that framed kind of edging with the lighter gray. I'm going to take my round brush and finish up the trunk. The brush I'm using is a little bit too big for the detail of the end of his trunk. So I'm going to rinse this, grab my number 4 round brush, and kind of make the same light gray that I had for the trunk. So I'm just going to kind of finish this shape. So if you want it to make it look like it's going around the umbrella, you can look at the reference photo that I have because I change it later on. Or you can simplify it and do it this way. And then I'm adding a little bit of white up here and kind of curving it, starting to add a few wrinkles in that area, but we'll do some black curved lines later. So the head is mostly dry. You want to do this when it's pretty much dry because you don't want it to blend too much. I'm going to take white and kind of dry brush this. So I'm adding it very, very lightly. I'm not doing very dark, opaque, thick paint strokes. I'm doing it very thin. And I'm just doing these curved marks starting from the top of the head, letting it kind of fade out towards the trunk. It gives it a little bit of highlight on the head. And then I want to do a white layer on the inner part of the ear because that's going to be painted pink. And I want the pink to really show up and be bright. So before I do that, I'm going to do a white layer first. So this is the inner part of the ear closest to the head. I'm going to kind of outline this, but then I'm going to drag my brush outwards. And when I'm dragging my brush, these paint strokes, I'm kind of releasing the pressure of my brush. So the white just kind of fades out towards the outer of his ear. So see how I still see a lot of dark on the outer part of the ear? I'm going to kind of repeat this again. I'm going to do the same thing. Start by outlining this edge closest to the head and then drag your paint strokes outwards. So it's very bright and then just kind of fades away. We still have the dark layer on the edge showing through. So when this white dries, we'll add our layer of pink on there and it'll be very bright. Likewise, I'm going to take my round brush and the white and I'm going to highlight a few areas. So starting with the bottom of his foot, I'm just going to kind of outline right here. That helps that bottom of the foot stand out a little bit better. Top of his leg a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Going to outline the edge of that and then the top of his leg. I'm going to do the side of his leg right here. And then right here. And then, so this got outlined, but then I'm going to do this right here very lightly. So this, again, is still kind of the same technique of what I did with the inner part of the ears. It's not thick white paint strokes. It's very light dry brush style. I'm going to do his toes, toenails. So with the white, and this is actually thick paint strokes, very bright and solid. So I'm just doing little brush strokes to create little ovals, and I just did 3 on each side. And then a little bit of outlining right here. So your outlining might be a little different from mine. Maybe you created enough contrast when you painted it in. Maybe you don't want to outline some of the edges with white. That's an artistic choice that you can make. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. I did a few more of those white curved lines along the trunk. Next, I'm going to rinse the brush and use just Mars Black this next step. I'm going to do the eyes. So add just a little bit of Mars Black to the tip of the brush, kind of twist it, roll it. That gets the paint right there on the end so that we can really do this fine detail. So the eyes are a little bit lower than the head. And they're really small ovals that kind of go diagonally towards each other. If you want to do this with a Sharpie or a paint pen, you can do it that way. Next, I'm going to paint the umbrella handle, and so I'm still using the 4-round brush, but I'm going to add a little bit of water into this black. This is going to help create a smooth, continuous, straight line, and I'm going to use my ruler to help me with this line. So I'm going to lay it right here where the drawing is. So remember, the handle is going to kind of overlap, where it is going to overlap the far left part of his head. And if we need to take this line, we can take it all the way up to the top edge, but I'm going to actually stop where that umbrella starts. And then we have the handle, or the little, like a little U shape. That's kind of a thicker paint stroke. So I'm pressing down harder to get that to be a little bit thicker. And then if you're waiting to paint the end of the trunk to make it go around the pole, this would be, you would paint that part now. So my finished picture shows an example of what that looks like. You would just use the same color and just wrap it around the handle of the umbrella, or you can keep it simplified like I have it right now. I'm just going to go back over the trunk with a little bit of white. I'm going to do a second coat on that line that I just painted to make it just a little bit thicker. So take the black, twist the brush to get that paint right there on the end of the paintbrush so you can do your thin paint stroke, and then I'm just making the umbrella pole just a little bit thicker. Next, we are going to do the umbrella shape, and we need to paint that white first so we can get our colors to be very bright and vivid. And oftentimes, if we have a medium or dark background, painting it white first really helps. So I'm taking the 12 bright brush, and I am just outlining this bottom part of the umbrella and the top part. So I'm going to outline it first, and then I'm going to fill it in solid white. So this little piece kind of overlaps the top part of his ear. Depending on how you drew yours, it may or may not be overlapping for you. And then see how these are divided into 3 sections? I'm actually going to paint it this way. Even though that this is solid white, I'm going to make my brush strokes go that direction. That's going to help create shape in my umbrella. So this middle piece, it's okay if we go outside the lines. I'm using the full width of the brush, and I'm just doing curved paint strokes. So we have 3 different sections, and those are going to be painted 3 different colors later on after this white dries. I'm actually right now taking the end of my brush and just really defining the edge of that top part of the curve. And then making sure these bottom outlines, edges are really defined as well. Next, I'm going to paint some of the water that's on the bottom. So I'm going to take my 12 bright brush and double load it in the light purple and the white. And I'm just going to take this and do little horizontal, very, very loose paint strokes kind of all throughout the ground area. I don't want to cover up the background, all of it. So just a few left and right colors of purple. And we can get blue back on our palette and do a few very loose blue marks in there, and it creates the impression of the water on the ground. I'm going to take a little bit of my black, just a teeny bit, you don't need a lot, and I still have blue and purple on my brush, and I'm just going to very lightly do left and right. It's almost like I'm doing these zigzag paint strokes to create some reflection under the elephant. Makes the water have different variations of color and shadow, and then loosely outline that hill we drew earlier. And then I'm going to paint the underside of the umbrella. So I'm going to let's make like a light to medium gray color. Actually, let's make it a light gray color because we're going to add color under here later, but it's still kind of dark and shadowy. So we're going to do the first layer with this light gray. And I'm just painting the under part. I did have to go over the handle, but I could repaint that with the round brush. So I can take my black again, and I can make sure this line is extended under and the gray part is behind. Next, I'm going to paint the pink inside of his ears, and I'm going to load my paint palette with the color light pink. You can make light pink by taking a red and mixing a whole bunch of white into it. So a teeny bit of red, bunch of white to create this color. You probably won't create this exact match, but if you were simplifying your palette and you don't have this color, that's what you can do. I'm just going to take my round brush, and I'm pretty much doing what I did earlier with the white, but I'm going back over it with the pink. So start with your thicker line at first, and then just drag your paint strokes outwards to create that soft edge of the ear. So see how the lining around the pink, the edge of that is very dark. I don't bring this all the way to the end of the ear. We have the dark. I can use my finger to kind of help smear that outwards. And do the same thing to this side. Start right here. Hopefully the umbrella pole isn't in the way. If it is, you can always paint over it and then redo the black line later. So start with solid pink, and then you want to just drag it outwards, and you can use your finger to drag it outwards so that it just fades away into that dark part of the ear. And if you need to touch up the umbrella pole, you can with more black. The next thing I'm going to demonstrate is little highlights in the elephant's eyes. So I'm taking the number 4 round brush in titanium white. You can also do this with a toothpick or the back of your paintbrush and just stamp the dots. But I like to do one larger dot on the top and then a small teeny tiny one down, and then both of those dots are going diagonally. And then I'm going to take the black. I'm going to do wrinkle lines and eyebrows. So I'm going to twist my brush. You can also do this with a black paint pen or a liner brush. But because I'm going to do a small detail, twisting that brush really helps. And I'm going to do a little curved line above each of the eyes. And then I'm going to do a few black curved lines on the trunk for some wrinkles. And now we're going to work on detailing up that umbrella. So let's make sure the white part of the umbrella is dry. And I'm going to actually start by doing some outlining before I add the color in there. I want to outline my sections of the umbrella because I think this is going to be really helpful when we paint each color section if we know where we're supposed to be painting it. So I'm going to take black and kind of loosely add some water in there so I can do this outline work. And so we're going to connect this point to the middle top of the umbrella, and then same thing right here in the middle top, and this gets connected. So now we have our sections divided up, and I'm actually going to take this and outline the bottom part of these as well. Make sure that that's divided from the dark gray underside of the umbrella. So this is outlined. And if you want, you can outline the entire top edge of the umbrella, but I'm not going to do that. So just take your time. If you like using the black paint pen, you can outline with that instead. And then when you're done, you don't need to wait for the black to dry all the way. You can go ahead and do this next step. I'm going to load my paint palette with the color Primary Yellow because it's the first color that we're going to do. And this is, we're going to work from the left to the right, and then we'll do the undercolors after that. So the first one is going to be Primary Yellow, and this is my 12 bright brush. Oh, and you are definitely welcome to change the colors of the umbrella if you want to do a different kind of color scheme, or if you want to do it all solid one color, you can do it that way. So I'm going to start by kind of outlining this edge, fill it in. So we want these in the middle. Just gonna be careful not to drag black in there. And so outline, and then remember how when we painted it white, we kind of made our paint strokes go curved in the middle. We're gonna kind of do the same thing with the yellow. So these are going curved. And then take your white. So you want to do this before the yellow dries. Take your white, and at the top, drag that white from the top down. It's not super noticeable with the yellow because the yellow is already a bright color, but I'm going to take the white, kind of outline this far edge too. It gives it a little bit of highlight, and we'll do some more highlight on that later. So there's the yellow section, and we're going to do our red next. So load your paint palette. I'm using Pyrrole Red. However, you can use a CAD red medium. You can use a Naphthol Crimson, whatever red you have available. This is just the one that I happen to grab. And rinse your yellow off. And do your red with the same technique. So these, you're going to outline, and then you want your paint strokes to curve with that shape. Before this dries, take your white, start at the top, and drag this down. It'll be more visible with that red. You can kind of see what that's doing. It will blend with the red. It's not supposed to look super bright. It's just supposed to look like a subtle highlight. And you're just dragging it down about halfway. And then for this one, I'm using Deep Violet. You can use whatever purple you want. You can use dioxazine purple. You can use quinacridone magenta, which is more like a pinkish color, magenta color. So whatever purple you have available is fine. If you want, you can even use the brilliant purple, the lighter lavender purple we used earlier. And then same thing, outline your shape, and then make your paint strokes go curved. And before that dries, grab your white and drag your white down from the top of the umbrella, go about halfway down and release your brush. For the under part of the umbrella, I'm going to use the number 4 round brush just because it's a smaller area to fill in. And so this one's going to be that light blue permanent color. I'm going to mix green next. So take your blue and yellow, mix it together, and you'll create a pretty green out of that. These under colors are going to look a little muted, and that's done on purpose just because this is the under part of the umbrella, so it'll be a little bit more gray, darker under there. And if we need to redo our handle again, that's okay. I'm going to mix the orange colors, so rinse that brush, and we'll do the red and yellow mixed together to make orange. With orange, you actually only need a little bit of red and a lot more yellow to get that bright orange color, because red is such a strong color. And then this one, it's painted orange. A little bit of my black line wasn't dry, so it kind of bled into that orange. That's okay. We wanted it dark and shadowy anyway. I'm going to touch up the umbrella handle, and then if you want, you can actually take a little bit of black. See how I wiped it off on my palette first to make sure only a teeny tiny bit of black is on there? I'm just doing a little bit of shadowing. And then I'm going to rinse my brush for this so I have some fresh black. But I'm going to paint the little notch that's at the very top of the umbrella, so like a little oval shape up here. I'm going to highlight the little umbrella handle next. So I'm going to rinse and then take my white and just on the bottom of this, I know that got cut off, but just a little light curve right on the bottom. And then a few touch-ups on the trunk. And then at this point, I recommend letting everything dry, and then I'm using a baby wipe to erase any leftover chalk lines. You can also erase leftover chalk lines with just a clean wet paintbrush. And now that the umbrella is dry, I'm going to go back and do some more highlighting on the umbrella. So I'm going to take my 12 bright brush and pure white. We don't need to add that color in there because this is dry now. And remember how we added highlights earlier? I'm just going to take this pure white and drag it about a quarter of the way down. So it's super bright and shiny at the very top of the umbrella. We can do maybe a few fun thin lined highlights. Maybe we can take this and go this way. But we don't want to lose too much of the color by highlighting everything. And then I'm going to take the round brush and black and go back and re-outline parts of the umbrella. So I'm going to start with the bottom line. And even though we did this earlier, I'm going to just redo it so it stands out. Then I'm going to add some colorful reflections on the bottom, which is so fun and adds a really pretty pop of color on the ground. So I'm going to take my red and just kind of towards the very edge of the canvas, kind of mimic the colors from the umbrellas or from the umbrella, and just very loose left and right paint strokes to create some pretty pops of color. I'm really just holding my brush on its side and not using like the tip of the brush, but just using the side of the bristles to do these kind of loose paint strokes. I'm going to take a little bit more of the black and just right under his feet, a little bit of dark shadowing to give the elephant a little bit more reflection on the ground. For the raindrops, I am going to switch to this brush. I love this number 8 long round brush by Princeton Velvet Touch because it gives us the ability to paint very, very thin lines. You can use a liner brush if you have one or you prefer the liner brush, but I love using this one. And I'm just going to load the brush in white and twist the brush. You really want to make sure those bristles are nice and gathered. And I'm going to paint my raindrops. So this part is really fun. It does take a while and you can kind of zen out as you're doing it because it's a really repetitive step, but you want to make sure that you're doing like a variety. So I love how this looks when you add the drops on the points of the umbrella. So you can take the point and just take that and add drops. It makes it look like there's water dripping down off the edge of the umbrella. It's super cute. You can do this to all of the points if you want. And then this is fun. We can make it look like there's water splashing off the umbrella. So we can do like little dots and then drag it outwards to make little curved marks that are splashing on the edge. We'll do another one over here. So I'll just drag your brush outwards, little curved marks. I'm going to do some gray raindrops, and this is going to provide some variation in our rain. So some are white, and then these ones are going to be darker colored drops. So I'm going to take my white and black. So it's not pure black, it's a little bit like a dark gray almost. And just go in, and I'm going to do a line on those splashes. And then add more raindrops kind of all throughout the background. These are very thin lines. We can also create a few little ripples on the ground. So I'm actually going to do white and black for the ripples. So do like the line going down and then do a few little ovals to create ripples in the water or on the ground, the little puddle. I'm going to do a few raindrops that are kind of more rounded, drop-like in shape, which is another variation that you can do. Some final touch-ups for this painting could be some outlining, and I'll show you some areas that we can outline to kind of help make things pop a little bit. So I'm going to take my 8 round and black, twisting the brush, loosening that paint with a little bit of water so that I can create these thin lines. So I'm going to do a little outline on the top of his head, and then the side of the elephant's head. And I'm also going to outline the inner part of the elephant's ear. So this shape gets a little bit more definition. And then the outer part of the ear as well. So see how thin these lines are, very, very thin, loose outlining. We can outline the edging of the elephant's trunk, just at the top part, so this part kind of stands out from the rest of his head. But you can outline the entire trunk if you want, and then a little bit of outlining on the legs. So wherever you need maybe pops of color for contrast, make this part a little bit darker. And the last final touch up, I'm going to do just a few more raindrops, making this one a little bit bigger. If you want, you can even take blue and add some blue into some of your droplets for added detail. I'm going to make this splash a little bit this way. And maybe we have a few larger raindrops that are overlapping the umbrella. And here is my finished elephant. I signed my name in the lower right corner, and I did adjust the elephant trunk off camera, so I painted over it using the same background color, and then I just took the light gray and made it look like it's wrapped around the handle. So I recommend, if you wanted to do that while you're painting the trunk and not later, or you're welcome to adjust it too like I did. And that is it. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.